I found something terrifying buried beneath the ice. I've always loved the cold. The biting wind, the crunch of snow underfoot, the stark, unyielding silence of winter, it calls to me. That's why I became a glaciologist, dedicating my life to studying ice and the secrets it holds. But the ice doesn't just preserve the past. Sometimes it hides things that were never meant to be found. It started with an invitation I couldn't refuse. Dr. Leonard Harker, a world-renowned climatologist, had assembled a team for an ambitious expedition to Antarctica. The goal was to drill deep into the ice sheet near a remote region known as the Weddell Rift. This area, untouched by human hands, was rumored to conceal geological anomalies and, potentially, organic material frozen for millions of years. The scientific community was buzzing about the project, speculating about ancient microbes, prehistoric plant life, or even the remains of creatures that had walked the earth long before humans existed. I was honored to be included. The funding was substantial, provided by a private organization that insisted on complete secrecy. No media, no press releases, and no public updates until the research was complete. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it off. Big corporations often had strange stipulations. The journey to the research site was grueling. We flew into McMurdo Station, then traveled by icebreaker to a desolate outpost set up specifically for the expedition. From there, it was another 2 days by snowcat to the drilling site, a lonely patch of white that stretched endlessly in every direction. The air was so cold it burned your lungs, and the sun hung low on the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the ice. Despite the harsh conditions, there was a palpable sense of excitement among the team. The drilling began on the 3rd day. We used advanced equipment to bore through the ice, extracting cylindrical cores that revealed a timeline of Earth's history. Each layer told a story: volcanic eruptions, shifting climates, and meteor impacts, all preserved like pages in a frozen book. By the 5th day, we had reached a depth of nearly 3,000 meters. That's when the anomalies began. The first sign was the temperature. Deep ice should be cold, but the readings from the drill head showed a sudden spike, a pocket of warmth, inexplicable at such depths. Then the drill hit something hard. Not rock or sediment, but something else. Something that made the entire rig shudder. We halted operations and carefully extracted the drill head. Attached to it was a fragment of material unlike anything we'd seen before. It was black, metallic, and unnaturally smooth, with faint ridges that almost looked like writing. Dr. Harker was ecstatic. He declared it a historic find, though none of us could identify what it was. The team worked late into the night, analyzing the fragment under microscopes and scanning it with every tool we had. The results were unsettling. The material wasn't terrestrial. Its composition didn't match anything in our database. Even more disturbing, it seemed to emit a faint electromagnetic field, as though it were alive. Harker became obsessed. He ordered us to widen the drill site, determined to uncover whatever lay beneath the ice. By the end of the week, we had uncovered a massive structure. It was buried deep, its edges jagged and angular, like the remains of a ship or building. The ice around it was tinted black, and the air near the site carried a metallic tang that made my skin crawl. We descended into the widening pit, armed with floodlights and tools. What we found was a door. The door was circular, rimmed with the same ridged patterns as the fragment we had pulled from the drill. It was enormous, nearly 4 meters across, and sealed shut. Harker insisted we open it, despite the protests of some team members. "It's a find of the century," he exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "We can't just leave it here." Reluctantly, we complied. It took hours to crack the door open. When it finally gave way, a blast of warm air rushed out, carrying a stench that made us gag. Like rot and sulfur, ancient and vile. Inside was a dark tunnel, its walls lined with the same black, metallic material. The ridges glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm like a heartbeat. No one wanted to go in, but Harker was insistent. "Just a quick look," he said, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. The tunnel sloped downward, leading us deeper into the ice. Our flashlights flickered as we walked, and the air grew warmer, almost humid. The walls were etched with symbols, alien glyphs that seemed to shift and writhe when viewed from the corner of your eye. After what felt like an eternity, we reached the end of the tunnel. The chamber was enormous, its ceiling lost in darkness. In the center stood a massive object, a monolith, black and pulsating, surrounded by what looked like bodies. The bodies weren't human. They were skeletal, with elongated limbs and twisted features, their forms frozen in grotesque poses. As we approached, the monolith began to hum, a low vibration that resonated in my chest. Then the whispers started. At first, I thought it was my imagination, a faint murmur, just at the edge of hearing. But as we stood there, the whispers grew louder, more distinct. They weren't in any language I recognized, but they filled my mind with images, war, destruction, endless voids of darkness. The others heard it too. One of the team members, Rachel, dropped her flashlight and screamed, clutching her head. "We need to leave," I said, my voice shaking. "No." But Harker refused. "This is a breakthrough," he shouted. "We can't turn back now." The monolith pulsed, brighter and faster, as though responding to our presence. And then it moved. It wasn't a solid object at all, but something alive, a mass of shifting, writhing blackness that began to spread across the chamber floor. The whispers became a deafening roar, and the bodies around the monolith began to twitch. We ran, whine. The tunnel seemed longer on the way out, stretching endlessly as the blackness pursued us. I could hear screams behind me, but I didn't look back. By the time I emerged from the pit, only 3 of us remained. The blackness didn't follow us out, but the pit was no longer silent. The hum of the monolith echoed up from below, louder than before, as though it were waking up. We abandoned the site that night. Harker wanted to stay, to keep studying, but the rest of us refused. We packed what we could and left, leaving behind the equipment and the pit and the horrors it contained. I don't know what we unleashed. Since returning home, I haven't been able to sleep. The whispers follow me, filling my dreams with visions of the monolith and the things that writhe in the dark. And the blackness, it's spreading. The news reports strange weather patterns near the Weddell Rift, warming temperatures, melting ice, unexplained seismic activity. I've tried to warn people, but no one will listen. Whatever was buried beneath the ice wasn't meant to be found. And now it's free.